Monday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Hope you had a great weekend. Thanks for joining us, Browns. Getting ready for mandatory minicamp that'll be underway tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, out in Berea. Deshaun Watson from his QB Unplugged podcast with his quarterback coach, Quincy Avery, gave us an update on where he is physically and how things are going for him.
So our shoulder's feeling good.
Yeah, man, that's the key, man.
July's coming up. Man, OTAs. It looks like you've been throwing the rock a little bit. How you living?
Yeah, the shoulder been feeling really good, man. Just, load management. Just taking it one day at a time. Just being able to follow the rules of Dr. Elatrosh and the team. And this is the plan. And this is what we need to, continue to go to get to where we need to get to. You know what I'm saying? And I think that being able to be on the field with the guys and be able to toss the football around is definitely key, you know what I'm saying, because we can work on the timing. There's no restrictions to that. It's just being able to, all right, what's the steps? And I've been following those, like I said, the process and hitting every milestone. So that's my key, is just taking it one milestone at a time and not just jumping over one, trying to get to the finish line. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like it's not really pacing yourself, but it's like having a plan, sticking to the plan, making sure everything goes good from there. And it's cool because I've like seen you throw. Like I get to see a lot of the throws that you're making during this period of time, and I'm telling people all the time, like, man, if you didn't know all the stuff he went through with his shoulder last year, if you watched him throw today, you'd have no idea. Like I know that you're on a pitch count and all those things, but just to see the ball come off your hand, the way that you throw it, I know that, you know what I'm saying, we can have a special season.
With that, let's welcome in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Mary Kay, you've said this for a while. The medical's going to continue to dictate. But the good news is he's throwing, and he hasn't missed a day that he was supposed to throw.
That's right, because you can see even over in Indianapolis, Anthony Richardson started to throw, and then he had to stop because of soreness. That hasn't happened for Deshaun Watson. And that is so key right now, that he's able to, again, as he mentioned, hit all of his milestones, move forward, feel good, and keep it going. And that's consistent with what Kevin Stefanski has told us, and it's consistent with what we've seen with our own eyes. Now, we haven't talked to Deshaun yet. We will either talk to him tomorrow or probably maybe Wednesday. But as far as just how he looks and how he sounds, he's right on track.
So I know you were at David Njoku's celebrity softball tournament over the weekend, and Deshaun Watson took his first hit of the year. He was playing first base, and he collided with tight end Zaire Mitchell-Payden. You were there. What was your reaction? I know you wrote an article about it. Take us through that whole play right there on a softball field.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I really couldn't even believe that he was playing softball. They have him in bubble wrap out at OTAs, where he can only throw every other day. He's not even stepping up to throw in 7-on-7s against a defense, even though there's no pads, no contact. They don't even have him doing that yet. He might do that at minicamp, but he hasn't done it yet. He, again, throwing every other day, taking it really easy. And here he is out there going up for a pop-up, catching it, colliding with Zaire Mitchell-Payden, first-year tight end. It was surreal to see it. We have Josh Gunter, our photographer, our amazing photographer, caught every frame of how that went down, and you can see that he fell right on that right surgically repaired shoulder. But we wondered how he was going to be able to absorb a blow on the shoulder, and now we know. At least he passed the first test, but it really was surreal to see that he actually got in a collision in the middle of a softball game, that he was even playing in the softball game. And of course, he came out 100% fine. Everybody was thankful about that. I did get a chance to catch up with Zaire Mitchell-Payden about the fact that he was petrified that he had just injured the Browns' starting quarterback. He was very, very worried about that and kept checking with him throughout the whole entire game to make sure he was okay.
Yeah, and you know what? At some point in time, you're going to take a hit. So, again, not the ideal situation, but at least, there's a little bit of that off now. You also wrote an article from Bernie Kosar's perspective about David Njoku from that celebrity softball tournament. Take us through what you found out about Bernie and kind of his thoughts on David Njoku.
Well, of course, they're both from the U, so he admitted he has a little bit of bias there, but he's known David for a long, long time, since before he ever even came into the program. And he thinks that he can be mentioned in the same breath with Travis Kelce. Of course, now he's not saying he is Travis Kelce, but he's saying that, you can put him up there with the elite tight ends in the NFL. And of course, as people realize, there were 2 Pro Bowl tight ends in the AFC last year, Travis Kelce and David Njoku. So he has put himself in that conversation. And last year, he actually did have numbers that rivaled Travis Kelce's numbers of last year. And I do think that there is more where that came from, because now he will be playing with Deshaun Watson for the whole season, or presumably for the whole season. We know that Travis Kelce has played with Patrick Mahomes since 2018, really mostly 2018 on, for the past 6 seasons, whereas David Njoku has had 11 starting quarterbacks in that span. No consistency, no continuity. So let's see what he can do with Deshaun Watson throwing him the ball for 17 games in the playoffs this year. We'll see if he can reach some greater heights.
Yeah, and you would think they're going to search matchups for David Njoku because you want to put a linebacker on him. I don't know how much you're going to. You want to put a cornerback on him. He's too strong. A safety, he's too fast. A linebacker, he's too fast. So we'll see. Browns finalized their preseason schedule. Packers, Vikings at Seahawks. The Seahawks game is like 10 o'clock on the final day of the preseason.
Yeah, and I have the pleasure of going to cover that game at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And so that's going to be very, very interesting. Going to probably pull an all-nighter there. And then come back home to Cleveland. I don't know why they have to play a game out in Seattle, a preseason game. It's ridiculous. I'm proposing that they give up a 7th round pick and trade somebody for that game and get somebody else in there that is on this side of the country. So I don't know if anybody would be willing to do that, or maybe a little farther west, but not Seattle at 10 o'clock. Are you kidding me? So anyways, not really looking forward to that one. They really wanted to play the Buffalo Bills in that final preseason game. And who knows, that may have even come with some more joint practices, which we know they're doing against the Vikings. But lo and behold, out to Seattle we go for a 10 p.m. preseason game. But it could be a meaningful game because Kevin Stefanski has played his starters in that final preseason game in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they divvy up the snaps and all that. Along those lines, CBS Sports, one thing to watch from every team's mandatory mini camp for the Browns, the split of the quarterback reps. So you've got Deshaun Watson, obviously that will be limited. Jameis Winston, Huntley, the DTR. What are you, again, mandatory minicamp gets underway starting tomorrow. What are you looking for? What are you keeping your eyes out for with the minicamp?
Well, I mean, if they do let Deshaun Watson throw some in 7-on-7s and 11-on-11s, then all eyes will be trained on that because the band is back together. David Njoku is back. Amari Cooper is back for this mandatory minicamp. Those guys skipped OTAs, voluntary OTAs. Jerry Jeudy missed some of the OTAs. So it's an opportunity to see what this new Ken Dorsey offense is actually going to look like with Deshaun Watson running it and all of those guys back. We haven't seen that yet. We really have been, for the most part, watching a lot of the backup guys. So that's what I will be watching first and foremost, but we don't know yet if Deshaun Watson is going to be able to do more than he did in OTAs. Again, just throwing routes on air, individual routes every other day. We just haven't seen that much. So I really hope that he does get a chance to do that, but I understand if he isn't going to do much more than what he did at OTAs, because it's all up to his surgeon, Dr. Neil Elatrosh, and Dr. Elatrosh wants him to be super conservative. The goal is to get him to training camp healthy, to get him to that opener against the Cowboys on September 8th.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear more from Deshaun Watson. He'll talk about Ken Dorsey in this offense. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Moneymaker from the Ohio Lottery has no interest in beating around the bush. Money Maker. You play the game, you could win money. Up to $2 million. With more than $88 million in prizes from $50 to $500. Moneymaker cuts right to the cash. Unlike this guy.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. This again from QB Unplugged, Deshaun Watson, Quincy Avery, talking about his perception of Ken Dorsey and this new offense that the Browns' new staff has put together.
Dorsey, super cool dude. It's funny when you see him from afar, then you get to meet him in person. It's just different, right? Like, he seems like super quirky, but when you meet him and really get to talk to him, you're like, oh, okay, good people. You know what I'm saying? Like,
very good dude, man. Very good dude. Very just relaxed, chill, and just want to just compete. You feel me? Just like compete. Let's go work. Let's put the time in, but at the same time, let's enjoy ourselves. Let's be you, be free. And I think that's another beautiful thing about Dorsey, and it's just beautiful about Kevin, man, allowing that, because Kevin be in those rooms and he's allowing that to happen and let Dorsey, hey, this is you. You take over the offense, you take over the QB room, and, you know, we work together to be able to try to build something very, very special.
That's got to be, I guess that's tough, but that's like real leadership, right? To give up something that, you know, you're passionate about, you know a lot about, you've been super successful coaching quarterbacks, super successful with the offense, and just be like, yo, I'm going to take a back seat, let you do this thing. I'm going to add in my flavor, my sauce, but I'm going to be the head coach. And that takes a lot, like a humility. And it takes to really being a good coach and a good dude. And I think Kev is that 100%.
Okay, it's kind of interesting just hearing him talk about Dorsey and this offense. And I got to agree, for a guy that's two-time Coach of the Year offensive coach, to say, go ahead and implement an offense, it's a sign of a really good coach and somebody that's very confident in themselves.
Well, it is. They're making it sound like, and everybody seems to be making it sound like Kevin is going to be handing over play calling duties to Ken Dorsey. And there seems to be just a groundswell of support for that. It really feels like that is the vibe. Kevin is not ready to say that he's doing that yet. Kevin's not ready to announce anything, but from the way those guys are talking, that certainly seems like what he's planning to do. I still don't think that that's what he should do, even though Ken Dorsey has a better handle on this kind of an offense. I still think that that Kevin should retain play calling duties, and then at some point, if he feels comfortable with the way that it's going, then hand it over to Ken Dorsey. But it seems like that cat is out of the bag. That ship has sailed. It feels like perhaps he's willing to turn it over. So we'll have to see how that goes and when he's ready to actually admit that he's doing that.
Yeah, and you know, I understand what you're saying. It's easy. It would be easier for him to kind of get things going and him call the plays, and then if it's going well, okay, we're going to turn it over to Ken Dorsey, rather than turn it over to Ken Dorsey and then, you know, potentially if things aren't going well, pull it back.
Yeah, exactly. But again, just with the way that Kevin is moving around out at practice, overseeing the whole process and letting Ken run the whole show on offense, it really has a Ken Dorsey is running the show vibe. And I wrote that a long time ago. I wrote that probably a month ago that Ken Dorsey, I think I wrote that in the first, I don't know if it was the first week of OTAs or at some point, I wrote that Ken is really driving the bus on this new offense and the installation of it. So really it is probably going to be a new day in Cleveland as far as the play calling situation is concerned, or at least it might be. Again, we don't know yet. Who knows? Maybe he'll announce it at this mini camp so they could just get it over with. But as of right now, it just seems like it seems to be trending towards that way.
All right, this from the Bleacher Report. Predictions for the Browns' most impactful free agent signings. They say Jameis Winston. Winston will have an impact even if he never plays a down. Jordan Hicks will prove to be one of the best bargain signings of 2024. Deontay Foreman will play a significant role at least early. So they go with Winston, the quarterback, Hicks, the linebacker, and Foreman, the running back. Yeah, I get all of those. I think I've said it all along. I think Jordan Hicks was an underrated signing. That's a guy 5 years in a row. He's had 100 tackles. And Jim Schwartz will know how to utilize his skill set.
Yes, he definitely will. And I can't wait to see how all of those defensive guys look on the field together. Again, you can't pick up everything during a mini camp. It won't be until training camp where we start to get a better feel for exactly who's playing where and how much and when and all that kind of stuff. But we will see the gang back together for the most part tomorrow. And in some cases, they really ran it back on defense in the secondary and up front for the most part. But yeah, I can't wait to see the new additions and how they look, how it all sort of fits together. It's going to look a lot different to us than it has in OTAs because we have not seen Myles Garrett. We have not seen Quentin Jefferson, Dalvin Tomlinson, Shelby Harris, Juan Thornhill. So many guys on the defensive side of the ball have not been there for OTAs, and plenty of guys on the offensive side of the ball haven't been there for OTAs, including Amari Cooper, David Njoku, Jerry Jeudy's missed time. And, it just hasn't been the star-studded roster that we know that the Browns really are. So can't wait to see it all together.
All right, this is from Sports Illustrated. It's ranking each team's top offensive triplets. They say the quarterback, the running back, and the wide receiver are the triplets. So the Eagles are number one. They've got Hurts, Saquon Barkley, and A.J. Brown. Chiefs number two with Mahomes, Pacheco, and Travis Kelce. Rams three with Matthew Stafford, Kyron Williams, and Puka Nacua. They have the Browns 19. They have Watson, Chubb, and Cooper. Cleveland is a tough team to predict for starters. Browns are hoping Watson will finally be productive and healthy, but we're entering the third year of his deal, and so far it's been a mess. Then there's Chubb coming off a gruesome knee injury, suffered last October. Will even be close to the same player he was before. I still think, and I get Watson and Chubb are coming off injury. That's awfully low. I mean, if Nick Chubb is 85 to 90% of what he was, he's still one of the top 10 running backs in the NFL. And Cooper's always underrated.
People keep saying, Deshaun's been a mess. Deshaun's been injured. Deshaun missed 11 games with a shoulder injury last year. So people need to remember that and stop describing him as a mess. I mean, are we describing Aaron Rodgers as a mess because he missed last season with a ruptured Achilles tendon? No. So Deshaun is still suffering from a lot of that outside, off the football field bias against him. From a football perspective, we don't know if he's a mess. As long as he's healthy, I don't think he's a mess. I think he has a really good arm. I think he's got great football instincts and a ton of talent. So people are going off the fact that, it's sort of the company line out there that everyone just keeps repeating over and over and over again without really understanding what they're saying or talking about. If he's healthy, that's way too low of a ranking. And as far as Nick Chubb is concerned, to put him in there as the number one back in the triumvirate, in this trio that they're talking about, even that, it's like Nick Chubb hasn't started to practice yet. So to put him in there as the number one guy right now, I think it's a little premature for that as well.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. I know you've written an article about this. So I'm curious, how much credit do you think the Haslams deserve for the stability that the Browns now have?
I think they deserve a ton of credit. I really do. It is always in vogue to rip owners and whatnot, but this ownership group of Dee and Jimmy Haslam and the rest of the group, they have really gotten it right. They stay out of the way. They open up their wallet and they just throw money out in millions. I mean, whatever this team wants, whatever this regime wants in terms of money, they can get it. They can restructure all of these contracts and hand out all of these upfront bonuses with the cash. It's been remarkable to watch what they've been able to do. And that's why you see the sustained success going on right now, where this team is built to win going forward for years. And, those guys deserved their extensions, Kevin and Andrew, they really did. And, the Haslams are getting it right, and they should get some good credit for that.
Yeah, I would agree. If you're going to criticize them when they had the quick trigger with the coaches, the other thing that shows me is all the movement that they made with the coaches. They were trying to get to the point where they had, a product in place that could win. And once they did, they've spent more than anybody.
Right. And, they didn't know what they didn't know when they first took over this team. They did not realize how big a learning curve it was, and that they did not know what basically they were doing in terms of NFL football ownership. And they stumbled out of the gate, and they made a lot of mistakes. They learned from those mistakes, though. And I think you're seeing the fruits of that now, that they understand you have to have alignment in your organization. That was their number one problem. They couldn't get it right between the parties involved. They just couldn't get a general manager that was on the same page with the coach, and so on and so on. Now they have that, and they are paying up to keep it in place.
So have you, and again, I don't know if you have or not, have you heard anything relative to extensions for Amari Cooper, Njoku, Newsome? Anything happening on that front that you know of?
No, I don't think anything is imminent with Amari Cooper. I know nothing's imminent with Elijah Moore. I think that will happen. They'll revisit that sometime during the season. I think if there were one that they were going to take a look at and try to get done sooner than later, it would probably be Njoku, because he was someone that they believed had first round talent. They got a bargain on him in the second round, and he is heading into the final year of his contract, and they certainly don't want to lose him. He's heading in, he's just heading into his prime, whereas Amari is turning 30 on June 17th. You've got Njoku still so young, still in his prime. So they're going to want to wrap him up as long as they can, as soon as they can.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break. Reason for optimism, according to PFF, for the Browns. Straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. This is from Pro Football Focus. Reasons for optimism for each and every of the 32 NFL teams. For the Browns, their defense will always give them a chance to win. Mary Kay, we've talked about this as well. It's kind of a double-edged sword. Year two in Jim Schwartz, they should be even a little bit better than they were in year one. They're going to face tougher quarterbacks, and quarterbacks kind of drive the bus for NFL offenses. So it's not going to be easy for them to be better.
No, it's going to be a lot harder to be better this year, because not only do they have a much better lineup of quarterbacks, when you look to last year's lineup of quarterbacks, they didn't even end up facing most of the starting quarterbacks that they were originally supposed to face. So they had instead of Aaron Rodgers, they had Trevor Siemian. Instead of Joe Burrow in the season finale, they had Jake Browning. Instead of Anthony Richardson, they had Gardner Minshew. And they just did not, instead of Kyler Murray, they had a rookie 5th-round pick in Clayton Tune. So they did not have a lineup of quarterbacks that makes you quake in your shoes, so to speak. And this year they do. They really do. And so they have to elevate their game. Every single one of these guys must pick it up a notch and play much better than they did before. They need to play with renewed vigor, renewed energy, and also, above all, with these guys too, they also have to stay healthy.
So this is ranking each team's top defensive triplets 2024. This is from Sports Illustrated again. They go Ravens 1, 49ers 2, Jets 3, and the Browns with Myles Garrett, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, and Denzel Ward 4. Garrett gets the bulk of the attention, but the Browns' defense has many standout playmakers, including the underrated Owusu-Koramoah, who made his first Pro Bowl last year. For the Ravens, the number one has Matabuke, Roquan Smith, and Kyle Hamilton. So I guess 4, you can split hairs. Myles Garrett, Defensive Player of the Year for a reason. So, I could see the Browns being ranked even a little higher than 4.
Yeah, I mean, 4 might be fair because of some of the things we just discussed, that they really kind of caught a number of breaks along the way, including the fact that when the 49ers came to town, they lost in the middle of the game. Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey, their 2 top weapons, and then their rookie kicker missed the game-winning kick at the end. So the Browns, they got their fair share of sort of QB breaks last year. So maybe 4 isn't too low for them, and it gives them something to shoot for. Even though they were the number 1 defense in the NFL last year, I don't know, according to statistically yards given up, I don't know if they were the most dominant defense in the NFL last year. I think they would get an argument from the Ravens about that and from a couple other teams about that. So let's see. They have the potential to do it. Let's see what they can do this year.
So I know you wrote an article, Myles Garrett wins Defensive Player of the Year. First time he's won that award a season ago. Can he reach it even a higher level? Take us through that article.
I think he can. We talked to Jacques Césaire, and he was asked what's expected of Myles Garrett, and he said a lot more. He expects a lot more from Myles Garrett, and he's not the first defensive line coach that we have heard say that from Myles Garrett. They watch the film, they see the they see the physical attributes that he has, the speed, the explosiveness, the bend, you name it, and they think there is another gear that he can hit in terms of what he can accomplish on that field. I kind of think so too. I've always felt that way, that even last year when he had 14 sacks and 1 NFL Defensive Player of the Year, I still think he can do a little bit more. When you look to his last 6 games, he only had 1 sack in the final 6 games. He didn't have any forced fumbles or recoveries in the last 8 games. And he didn't have the kind of eye-popping stats that you would want to see from the NFL Defensive Player of the Year in that playoff game. So I do think that there's more where that came from. And I think he needs to keep the pedal to the metal and make sure that he is 100% living up to every bit of physical talent that he has.
So this is from PFF, top linebackers entering the 2024 season. Number 1, they have Fred Warner of the 49ers. 2 is Roquan Smith. 3 is Demario Davis from the Saints. Patrick Queen of the Steelers is 7. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah of the Browns is 8th. Making up for his lack of size at the position with tremendous speed and quickness, he has earned PFF coverage grades of above 70 in each of the past 2 seasons. Also used effectively as a blitzer in 2023, setting career highs with 18 total pressures, 4 sacks, PFF 87.4 pass rushing grade. The other thing is he was one of the top guys in tackles for loss, going against edge guys. So, I think he's ascending, and I think he's only going to get better in a second year with Jim Schwartz. Jim Schwartz has kind of learned what he does well, and he's going to put him in positions to succeed.
Yeah, he really flourished in Jim Schwartz's defense last year. That really, really brought out the best in him and his talent. And simultaneously, the lights have really come on for JOK. And he laughs when we ask him that question, like the lights were off before. But those guys don't realize, even themselves, just how much the game slows down for them as they go year by year, and how much better they actually do get. We can see it because the jump is so big. But when he's in it and he's playing it, he might not feel it from the inside. But he really has gotten so much better, and I do think that that the trajectory, the arrow is pointing up, and he'll be even better this year.
Before I let you go, there's some additions, both draft picks and free agents defensively. Who do you think is a guy that has is positioned at least to make the biggest impact that the Browns have added on the defensive side of the ball?
I'm going to start with Mike Hall Jr. You don't pick somebody in the second round like that unless you really believe that you're going to plug him into the starting lineup and see what he can do. Now, he's got to beat out Quentin Jefferson, who had 6 sacks last year, so it's certainly not going to be easy. But they really see something in Mike Hall Jr., and they really believe that he can live up to that second-round potential and all the things that he did at Ohio State and be amazing for them even in his first year.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, as always. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much, Mary Kay.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Mary Kay Cabot, make sure you read her pages of the Plain Dealer, also cleveland.com. Always great Browns coverage. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Scott Petrak from the Elyria Chronicle Telegram. Straight ahead, we continue talking Browns. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave, this is Danielle. All I can say is Deshaun Watson needs to be in bubble wrap, please, because he can't get hurt. I mean, he's like a fragile egg. I don't even know what to say at this point, so fingers crossed. All right, go Brownies. Woof, woof.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Scott Petrak from the Elyria Chronicle Telegram, as well as brownzone.com. Scott, yeah, they need Deshaun Watson to play 14, 15, 16, 17 games without question.
Yeah, and what's kind of weird, Dave, is he barely missed time in his Houston career, right? He had the ACL, I think as a rookie, and then didn't miss any time since then. And then he gets here and, he has a suspension, and then last year he deals with the shoulder stuff. So I don't think it's, fair to label him injury prone, but when you're the Browns and you've had 12 starts in 2 years, I can see why people would worry, and it's certainly important for him to be on the field. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, we showed a couple weeks ago. There's a website that will show you, like a skeletal thing of a guy, and some of the quarterbacks there's red dot injuries, and some of them look like they've been on a dartboard. Deshaun's is pretty clear. There's only like 3 or 4 injuries that he's had, and I get it with Browns fans. They're kind of like, he's always injured. Well, he hasn't been.
Right. I mean, that's where, I don't know if it's bad luck or getting older, but I mean, he's only 28, right? So it's not like he's well past his prime or anything, especially not for a quarterback. So, I think it's fair to go into this season expecting him to be healthy, expecting the shoulder to be okay. And then if something else happens, all right, then I get all the worries. I get the consternation that he'll miss time again. But I don't think it's fair or makes sense to just assume he's going to miss time. That's not really his history.
No, and that website also projects games missed for next season based on his injury history. It projected him to miss 1.1 games. So that kind of gives you an idea with a computer model. This from the Bleacher Report. Biggest questions facing every team after OTAs. For the Browns, the question they have is, will Deshaun Watson live up to expectations? After decades of torture, the Browns finally have a roster that's ready to compete for a Super Bowl. However, the team has a major question mark at the most important position on the field, seeing Watson hasn't lived up to a massive contract he signed after getting traded to the club 2 years ago. And again, injuries, again, Deshaun Watson can't control that he got injured. The suspension was longer than I think even the Browns thought it would be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not removing any responsibility for the suspension from Watson, right? I mean, he agreed to it. He didn't have to, but he did. And, he admitted, or I don't know if he admitted, but he accepted that suspension. So that's on him. Injuries aren't. Maybe it wasn't the wisest move to, turn his back and take that direct shot near the goal line against the Tennessee last year. But, I mean, that's part of his game. That's who he is. I don't know if I can, blame a guy for playing hard and trying to get extra yards. But the expectations thing is real. I mean, the Browns traded 5 draft picks, 3 first-rounders, and paid him $230 million guaranteed. So he would be that much better than the guy they had, Baker Mayfield, right? They did that because they believed Watson gave him a chance to compete in a rugged AFC. And he hasn't done that yet. So, yeah, I mean, it's all about Deshaun Watson. We've talked about it a million times. It's about how Watson will play. And if he does live up to those expectations, this could be a really fun year for the Browns. I don't want to get carried away, but it could be.
Yeah.
I mean, they should be in the thick of things if Watson plays like he did when he was with the Texans.
You know what? I think he has as high of expectations for himself as the fans have for him. I really do. Just in listening to him, he expects more of himself maybe than some of the fans do.
I think that's fair to say. I think if he thinks of himself as a top 5 guy, I mean, maybe I don't know if it's honest moment, but in a real moment, maybe he thinks he's the best quarterback in the league, right? A lot of guys have to have that mentality for them to be successful. I know on his podcast, I think it was last week, he cited himself as like one of the all-time great clutch performers. And you don't say that if you don't have deep confidence in yourself or want people to think you have deep confidence in yourself. So I'm sure he expects to play more. I'm sure he expects to play better than he has. And I haven't gotten any sense, maybe coming off the suspension, but I don't think last year I got any sense that he had doubts about himself or his ability to get back to the Pro Bowl player he was in Houston. I think that's more of an external thing, not internally.
Yeah, I would agree. Just in listening to him, I would agree with you. All right, this is kind of interesting. So this is from Dov Kleiman. Dropped passes in 2023, so last season. Chiefs had the most, 44. Browns had the second most, 42. Cowboys, 38. Rams, 36. Lions, 35. So those are drop passes. You see the Bills, the Colts and the Bills. Pretty good neighborhood to be in. If you're, and I get it, you don't want to drop passes, but those are all playoff teams, for the most part, deep playoff teams that have the drop passes.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not sure there's a cause and effect there.
No, but
right?
it's just an observation.
Yeah. But, maybe that's something to do with the number of times you throw, and I'm sure that increases the drop numbers or drop rate, or not rate, but the total drop numbers. Usually teams that go to the playoffs and make a deep run, throw the ball out, they usually have good quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Now, I was trying to think of that. I remember games where you said, oh my gosh, the Browns had 6 or 7 drops, right? There were a couple of those. I don't remember any huge drop that I thought, oh, it cost them this game, and maybe I'm just forgetting that. But there were some of those. And I don't know. I don't think there's a rhyme or reason. I think there were just too many drop passes. And, like Amari Cooper had a couple, and that's not him.
Right.
To me, that's unlike Cooper. So sometimes it just happens.
So this is from Dog Pound Daily. These are what they think are the 3 position groups with the most competition to make the 53-man roster. Number 1, they say linebacker. Number 2, they're going to go with wide receiver, and they've added to that position group both via trade and draft. And number 3, they say tight end. So when you look at those, which of those do you think has the most competition, or do you think there's another one that's going to have even more competition to make the 53-man roster?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go off the board and go D-line. And if you want to go D-tackle and D-end separately, that's fine. But, I think a D-tackle first, right? And they have Tomlinson, Hurst, Harris, Ika, Jefferson, and then they draft Mike Hall Jr. And they drafted Juwan Briggs, right? So all those guys aren't going to make this team. Right? Maybe 5 of those guys make this team. So I think that's a really difficult spot. And then even defensive end, you go Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, Obo Okoronkwo, Alex Wright. You have Elijah McGuire, who they drafted last year. Isaiah Thomas the year before, right? So you had a bunch of guys at both those spots. those would move ahead of the three. Receiver's interesting because it's receiver, but you're really fighting for one or two spots at the bottom. And tight end, I just don't see a whole lot of candidates there, tight end.
Yeah, I'm with you with defensive tackle. And think about it. A couple of years ago, that was a position that was bare. You kept wondering, what are they going to do for defensive tackles? And boy, that changed in a hurry in a year last year.
Yeah, they made it a priority, right? And it felt like it hadn't been a priority, and they made it a priority. Part of that was Jim Schwartz coming on as coordinator and really stressing that defensive line as the engine. I think part of it was they said the play wasn't good enough, right? But I don't know, I listed off all those guys. Mike Hall Jr. is a lock. Tomlinson's a lock. After that, I guess I'm not sure if you would surprise me if any of those guys wasn't here, even though a bunch of them got re-signed, a bunch of them got contracts. Ika was a high draft pick. Like, it's just too many guys.
Yeah, and again, it's going to be competition, and that's what Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski have said they wanted. There going to be a lot of competition in that defensive tackle room. Scott Petrick and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear more from Deshaun Watson. Plus, we'll hear from David Njoku about this year's offense. Sports for CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrick from the Elyria Chronicle Telegram, as well as BrownsZone.com. Deshaun Watson and his quarterback coach Quincy Avery on QB Unplugged talk about Jameis Winston and the feel of this year's Browns quarterback room.
Every day he come in, very respectful, and he comes in, he wants to lead, he wants to learn from everybody. You know what I'm saying? And he just want to be able to serve. And I think that's the key word for Jameis, is being able to serve others before himself. And I think that, we've had talks, we have personal talks, and not getting too deep. It's just kind of like he's very secure with himself. And of course, everyone has insecurities, everyone has flaws, But I'm just saying, like, he know who he is. And for him, he told us one day, it was just like, now you got to know who you are before you can help anybody else. Because how can you help somebody else when you don't even know who you are as a person, as a player, as an individual? You know what I'm saying? And I think, like, there's always little nuggets like that, not just about football, but just about life in general. And they keep the room compact. You know what I'm saying? We all come from different phases. Jameis come from Alabama. I come from Georgia. Snoop come from Florida. DTR come from Vegas. You know what I'm saying? And for all of us to come in one and, like, have the type of relationship and that brotherhood we got, like, there's no type of egos in there. We all want to see each other eat and go to the top. You feel me? So that's the key.
Scott, it's kind of interesting just hearing. It gives you an idea of the relationship that Watson and Winston already have, and Winston had kind of alluded to it before. That's all good.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I think, it's interesting. You go back and it's the Jameis Winston, Joe Flacco discussion, and, I'm sure that's going to pop up. Well, it's got a chance to pop up, right, depending on how much Winston is asked to play. Having said that, I do think Winston brings something to this quarterback room, to this locker room, to this team. He's got an infectious personality. He's got a ton of energy. I don't know him a lot. I've met him a couple times. Seemed, really nice. Glad to meet the reporters. But I trust Watson when he talks about Winston feeling secure in himself. And I think that comes through. And I think he'll be good for Watson in that room. I just think he will be.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with it. This is interesting as well. I don't know if I agree with it. ESPN, everything we're watching in NFL mini camps. For the Browns, how is Deshaun Watson progressing? Remains limited with voluntary workouts in his rehab after that shoulder injury. Level of participation will be dictated by the medical team. The reason I say I don't know if I agree with it, I don't know that he's going to do anything more than he did in OTAs. So I don't know that you're going to be able to see any progression.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the first thing I'm looking for, though, right? To see if he does do anything more. If he doesn't, I don't think it's a red flag. He said in April that maybe he wouldn't even throw or practice until training camp, right? So he beat that timeline. I know that his medical staff wants him to be really careful and take it slowly and then be ready for July and August, and then obviously the season. So it wouldn't be, I don't think it'd be any kind of bad news if he just threw every other day and didn't participate in team drills or 7-on-7s. Having said that, if he throws 3 straight days, that's a step forward. If he throws in 7-on-7s or 11-on-11s, that's a step forward. And I think that's what you're looking for at this time of the year. Again, it's not the end of the world if he doesn't, but if he does, I think that's another positive sign. And all the signs have been positive, right? He started throwing in March. The fact that he could throw in, OTAs, he threw deep. He doesn't look like he has any pain. Kevin Stefanski says he looks like Deshaun Watson. All those things are good, and that would just be another step in that right direction.
So, other than Watson's throwing, what else are you looking for as mini camps get underway tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm just finishing that story right now. You're looking for Amari Cooper, right? He wasn't at OTAs. He's entering the last year of his contract. Does he care? Is he upset about that? Is he looking for an extension right now? Does he understand if the Browns want to wait and see how the season goes before talking about an extension? I'm interested in that. Myles Garrett, we didn't see him in OTAs. I saw him at that softball game Saturday, but I haven't seen him in OTAs. I know he looks great. I saw him. I know he's been working out like crazy. He always does. But I assume we'll talk to Myles. How's he feel coming off that Defensive Player of the Year? What's his motivation? Does he feel like he needs to, kind of validate that award? The injured guys. Does DTR, is he take another step in his progression? He started throwing last week. Do we see Jed Wills Jr.? He's been watching practice, working on the side. He could be out there this week. Does he practice or do they wait until training camp? And then some of the other guys that we haven't seen, right? I mentioned Garrett and David Njoku, who hasn't been in OTAs. Amari Cooper, Juan Thornhill, Dustin Hopkins, Dalvin Tomlinson, Quentin Jefferson, the free agent D tackle. So just to get eyes on these guys, see if they're healthy, see how they look, maybe talk to them, talk to some new guys. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for in these 3 days. And the whole offseason builds to these 3 days, and then there's a big break. So I think it's fair to have, a pretty bright spotlight on mandatory minicamp.
All right, so I know it's still very early, but David Njoku at his celebrity softball thing talked about this Ken Dorsey offense that the staff's putting together.
How much have you sort of been able to dive into like the playbook and some of the stuff that he has planned for you guys as you kind of get ready?
It's juicy, dog. It's juicy. I'm not going to say anything else. But I'm really excited for this.
And Scott, you kind of get that in bits and pieces from all the offensive guys. And they're not going to say that they're not excited, but the fact that they go out of their way to talk about it, are you able to get any sense at all how different the offense is going to look?
It's been hard. Part of that's because Watson's not taking snaps with the 7-on-7 or team drills. You haven't had Amari Cooper there. Jerry Jeudy hasn't been there a ton. Njoku hasn't been there. So it's hard to get a great feel. You do see some spread stuff, but it's not like over the top that I've noticed. But talking to guys, that's where you get the glimpse, right? And it's more spread, more freedom, more shotgun, more RPOs. So when you throw all that together and then you make comparisons to what Dorsey did in Buffalo, feels like it's going to be more open, right? More throws. Now, Dorsey was careful last week when we talked to him that it's not just his offense. Kevin Stefanski has a ton of input, obviously. A lot of the other coaches do. They're not going to abandon the run, right? That's been part of Kevin Stefanski's DNA. That's not going away. But I do think when we get to August and September, you'll notice more 3 and 4 wide receivers. Maybe just pure from a horizontal standpoint, guys will be spread out more, right? The running back, maybe Deshaun Watson will be in the shotgun more. Like everything I think will feel just a little more space, a little more wide open.
Do you get the sense, I mean, it's been several of the guys seem to really like the changes. Now, they're not going to say if they don't, but they're going out of their way and sound excited about what's going on.
Yeah, but I think that's probably par for the course when you talk to quarterbacks and receivers, right? You know, I don't think Nick Chubb was asked about it. Not that he would, poo-poo it, but if Chubb's carries go down, or Jerome Ford, or does the offensive line think, hey, we're pass blocking too much, right? Like, so I think receivers are going to like this offense. I don't have any doubt about that. I know Naheem Hines, the running back that's with Dorsey in Buffalo, who catches the ball out of the backfield, he loves it. They have the choice routes. They're going to run more of those, which gives the receiver the option of going, cutting inside or out based on the defense. They think that's going to help. So I think there's going to be an emphasis on getting the ball into the playmakers' hands quickly, right? Whether that's David Njoku, Jerry Jeudy, and the guys that can run after catch. Naheem Hines fits there, right? Get them the ball, get them in space, and let them create that way.
Scott Petrek, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram, as well as BrownsZone.com, and I. Going to step aside, take another time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear more from Deshaun Watson. Sports4CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrek, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram, as well as BrownsZone.com. This again from QB Unplugged, Deshaun Watson and his quarterback coach, Quincy Avery. Watson talking about the expectations he has for himself in 2024.
I know what the expectation is, and maybe the stats might differ a little bit because you playing outside more. You might not be able to throw consistently for that many yards. But
even that be screwed though. Screwed. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, people are like, oh, winning is not a QB stat. Who? To who?
That's what matters.
Yeah, whoever win that Super Bowl gonna be like, I'm a world champion.
So yeah, you saying the stats was skewed. What do you mean by that? I'm trying to what you mean?
No, I'm just saying like yeah, people look at I think it was like the QBR and things like that, but like let's break down the film on certain things, like the opportunities of me playing a full season. That stuff can change. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, like if you winning in this league, it's hard to win. I don't care who you are. You have to win in the division and in the league that I'm playing in. Like if you're winning, it's hard to replace you. It is what it is. What are you gonna say? Trent Dilfer, he's not a world champion.
Got that fucking ring.
Yeah, he got that ring. He can put that ring right on that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is what it is. At the end of the day, that's the whole ultimate job is to be a world champion. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a team player, so it is what it is.
And Scott, the stats being skewed was relative to the 2020 season that everybody talks about. So he was putting an asterisk by it because they only won 4 games. It's hard to argue, if you're the quarterback, your job is to win games.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting topic. And I think we get into more data and more analytics. People make fun or people dismiss quarterback wins. I'm not one of those people. I think it does matter. I agree with Watson there. It's not the end-all be-all, right? You can play great and throw for 600 yards and you lose 52-51. It's hard to blame that on the quarterback, right? And maybe, just if you look at fourth quarter stats, maybe that matters more than straight up wins and losses. Having said that, it does matter. And the quarterback has a big impact. He's got an oversized impact on wins and losses than anybody else on the team. So I would not, I don't know if I would define a quarterback solely on wins and losses, but I would not dismiss that stat.
Yeah. I agree with you. The analytics people, quarterback stats isn't, or quarterback wins isn't a stat. Here's the thing, though. If a guy has the ball in his hands in the fourth quarter, can he go win you the game? That's the most important. To me, that defines a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. So there's probably other numbers, right? Comeback wins or whatever, right? So there might be better numbers than just the quarterback wins and losses. So I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it's the end all be all, but I do think it matters. I think the quarterback has an effect on guys that are intangible, and I think some of that shows up. But yeah, if you gave me, fourth quarter stats, fourth quarter comebacks, can you, fourth quarter comebacks, even fourth quarter holds, right? Do you make plays when you're up by 3 and you need 4 first downs, right? Does that quarterback get those? So, and not that the rest of the game doesn't matter, but those tend to matter more. Playoff stats, wins and losses in the playoffs matter more. So I think all those things go into play. And I think Watson's also right that you can tell by looking, right? I mean, a lot of that is, all right, I watch this guy. I know if he's legit or is not legit.
All right, so this is from CBS Sports. Players who should return kicks with the new rules. For the Browns, they go with Elijah Moore. So I know you wrote an article about coaches, players starting to get a feel for the new kickoff rules. Do you think they're going to – I think you got to do 2 return men. And I also don't think you're going to get a real feel for these kickoff rules until you actually do it in a real game.
I completely agree with that. I mean, you get a sense, right? You get a sense for what body type is out there, and we got our first look at that last week. Couple defensive linemen, an offensive lineman I saw, defensive lineman on the coverage, offensive lineman on the return team, which I don't think you normally see, right? So I think you see some bigger bodies. It's going to be a hybrid between a return and a scrimmage play. And where do you find that medium, right? That happy medium. Which way do you lean? It depends on personnel. It depends on team. Depends on scheme. The Elijah Moore thing's interesting. He did not get asked about it when he talked a couple weeks ago. I think he's a candidate. I think Jerry Jeudy could be a candidate. The Browns love how he plays with the ball in his hands. And there's going to be some space back there. And, I'm leaning toward Jeudy more than Moore. And I could be wrong about that. But I think both guys will get at least a look in training camp and probably mini camp. Bubba Ventrone says we're going to have all our skill guys back there at some point. But like Amari Cooper doesn't seem to me like a kick return guy, right? He doesn't. I mean, I know he's fast and whatever, but he doesn't strike me as this big burst guy. Where Elijah Moore and Jerry Jeudy, I think they have that run after a catch ability, and I think that's going to be the same skills you're looking for in a returner.
Do you think they go with 2 men deep because you're going to want the guy to get the ball in his hands quicker because you got the 10-yard separation is all?
Yeah, I think you have to. And I think you can do different stuff, with 2 guys back there. But yeah, just because, if the kick goes all the way to one sideline, what do? You always start in the middle and run, 23 yards to the sideline? Like, I don't think that's a tenable way. So yeah, I think you're going to have 2 guys back there.
All right, before I let you go, CBS Sports, one under-the-radar player from each AFC team who could shine in 2024. For the Browns, they go with Grant Delpit. If he can stay on the field, he's in for a career year in 2024. 80 combined tackles, career-high 1.5 sacks, 3 passes defended, and an interception in 13 games last season. You could go – I think there's a number of guys that are intriguing for the Browns. I certainly think Delpit. I think Jim Schwartz knows exactly how he wants to use Delpit to be effective.
Yeah, under the radar, I guess is, in the eye of the beholder. I mean, he was supposed to be in a Pro Bowl last year. I thought he had a breakout season. The Browns signed him to that extension. So, I certainly think he's getting better and will continue to get better and started playing like the guy the Browns drafted in the 2nd round. So yeah, I mean, he's a good pick. I think he's going to be good. I like him in this defense. He's shown that he can make plays on the ball. It's an attacking scheme. I think they missed him when he wasn't available at the end of the season and then in that playoff game. They had to go really young at safety, and they missed they'll put out there. So, yeah, you can put him on that list. I mean, that's the thing with the Browns roster. There's not a whole lot of guys that are under the radar, right? Like, there's a lot of established players on this team
that are also young and kind of ascending.
Yeah, I mean, is DeJuan Jones count as under the radar? I think he's got a chance to make a big leap from year 1 to year 2,
Scott Petrak, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Scott.
Thanks, Dave.
Scott Petrak, make sure you check him out. Brownzone.com on the internet. He is the Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle Telegram. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.